Good morning and welcome back. It is my real honor and privilege to be able to chair this second keynote session of this very, very special event, the QSR 20th year anniversary. And my name is Tirthankar Dasgupta. I've been very fortunate to be associated with the QSR group for several years, and it's wonderful to see all of you here. And thanks to Kaibo, Kamran and Yao for organizing this fantastic event. So our second keynote speaker is Professor C.F. Jeff Wu. Jeff really doesn't need any introduction, I think, within our QSR group as well as beyond our QSR group. I would just like to say that one of the best things to happen in my life is to have Jeff as my advisor, and not only as an advisor, but as a guide, a mentor, a friend, and a philosopher. It's not only academic things that I've learned from him, but I've learned philosophies of life in general, and how to survive in different circumstances and situations. And all of these he has passed on as a rich legacy to not only myself, but to our academic community. I'm very happy to see Jeff give a talk on conditional main effects because like several other things, this is a concept and collection of ideas which Jeff essentially owns. So he has his ownership on this fundamental concept. I didn't realize how deep and how insightful this was when I first read it as a part of the Wu Hamada textbook. But then as years have passed, I've realized that this is something which is very, very fundamental and has a lot of potential in being expanded into a lot of interesting research ideas. So with that, I will leave the stage to Jeff and let us welcome him.
My association with QSR very, very long and actually very emotional because I remember the first one 20 years ago. I cannot believe 20 years ago in Seattle actually. And John Burge was the president of Inform, and with the help, Jen was the first section chair, Susan Albin the first advisory chair, and I was the second advisory chair. So it had grown very well. Okay, today my talk, this is a very new talk. Every few years, people know that I will create one talk that I believe to be interesting. I mean, I should put all of them on my website. There's a few of them, feature lecture, Deming lecture, some other, but these will rank among them. Okay, it's my saga, my personal journey with the concept called conditional main effect. So it's very, very simple, but surprisingly not realized by other people. Okay, so the germination idea was when I was in Canada. I moved to Canada from Wisconsin, Michigan. And then, so this talk is more storytelling, but I also have some technical stuff. Then there was a big gap of 23 years. Then the opportune moment came when I was invited to give a feature lecture. Why did I explain to you? Then we wrote the first major, so this was a JASA paper, but there I only one section on CMEs. Then our major paper was with my former student Henry Su in JQT. In a lot of study department only rank journal. They always say top 4 or something. But I can tell you, some of the most fundamental historical papers are not in the top 4. Okay, and just don't care about that. Oh, but you have to care. I'm sorry. And this won the Brumbaugh Award. So, but there was up to this one was really fractional factorial design. Then I quickly realized, well, actually around the same time, then came another very talented student, Simon Mack. This would, I believe, a future star that I can predict even without any hesitation. He had done many, many things already. He's very young. This I call acceleration. So this is a new method that works for general bi-level variable selection. So this is machine learning. I mean, I have to use a term that's more respectable. You feel more happy about it. You know, everything machine learning. This is machine learning. I believe this will be the major, the standard method. Sorry, I'm kind of bragging and predicting. And you see why I say that. This will become the standard variable selection method for bi-level selection. And you see why. Okay. And then, actually, there are a lot of other applications. So I will share with you my ongoing work with another student, and he's finishing a degree on the revenue optimization e-commerce and a method called funnel testing. Okay, so we need to give some mathematical definitions. So consider two factors, each one has two levels. So the so-called main effect we all know. You take the average on one level and the minus average on the other level. Well, but this is the one that this is the standard definition of interactions or two-factor index. So you have 2 by 2. So you take the average or the plus plus minus minus, and the versus the average or the plus minus minus plus. That's the standard definition. Go to Box Hunter book, both Montgomery book, both most other books. That's the standard definition. Okay, so but let me say that this definition does not convey the intuitive meaning of interaction. The words I'm writing here are exactly the words I had when I was very young. So I started teaching from Box Hunter. I joined Wisconsin in 1977. The famous book, fundamental book. I mean, this is a historical book, I would say, for its time. It looked very simple, actually, but was historical. This was 1978, the Box Hunter book. I started teaching from book probably 1979. I believe the second or third time I taught, I grew dissatisfied with the definition. Why? Think about it. What's the meaning of interaction? I don't need to explain. You know the English meaning of interaction. Does this convey the meaning? No. Okay, so now let's define the so-called conditional main effect. It's a main effect of A conditional on B at the plus level. This is another conditional main effect, conditional on B minus. Then you take the difference of the two, that's the same as the interaction. So again, let's think about how we define second order derivative from first order derivative. It's a derivative of the first order derivative, correct? Okay, maybe you say that's infinitesimal. How about the finite difference, right? You look at the difference, you have first order difference, another consecutive first order difference. You take the difference, the second order difference. That was exactly my idea at the time. Not just now. I mean, they were exactly on, that's what I told my student in Wisconsin. But I didn't emphasize, I didn't know how important. I just saying, well, this is how I define. That's all. But when Eddie, when he wrote the Wood Hamada book, the first edition was 2000, you can see that we define interaction through the conditional main effect. But at the time, the Fisher lecture didn't come yet. I'll explain to you why. So the moment hasn't come yet. Okay. So one should view the conditional main effect as two interaction components. Okay, so conditional main effect actually has interpretation in many applications. Let's take genetic. This is probably one of the largest, and we're trying to do this, extending our JASA work to more medical and genetic, like genetic pathway. So that's ongoing work I won't mention today. So, for example, which gene are conditionally active, or which gene activate other genes? Usually, gene absent or present is bilevel. So clearly that's bilevel. In engineering, one of the examples that the molding temperature only has an impact at a high, say, holding pressure, not at low holding pressure. And in social sciences, the effect of income on GPA, and they may vary from ethnic group to ethnic group. For some ethnic group, this is very visible, other not visible. So if you look around, actually, I will tell my students, if you have some fundamental concept, you walk around, you should see it. If you don't see it, then somehow you don't your eyes. Okay, I always say that. Okay, so now let's go to this very standard 2 to the 4 minus 1 design, resolution 4 with this defining relation. So now let's look at the last two columns. This interaction column AB, that's interaction column CD. They're identical. This is called aliased. Okay, so these two interactions are said to be aliased in David Finney's fundamental paper because they represent the same contrast. Well, actually, mathematically, an earlier concept was by Yates called confounding, but confounding between factorial effect and blocking effect. Okay, I sound like a historical purist, That is, I'll tell you exactly the word or meaning that you should know. But most nowadays, you guys are engineers, worry about more paper, more funding, more money, please the chairman. I think very few are purists. And I belong to that generation that I have not been corrupted yet. Okay, so the traditional wisdom, the pair effect cannot be disentangled and therefore are not estimable. Now, in the Wu Hamada book, we add the adverb fully aliased. The reason is the Hamada Wu's paper in JQT has something called partially aliased. That's not my talk today. Okay, but so fully aliased meaning they cannot be disentangled. Well, so a provocative question: this can they be aliased without adding run? I start asking this question. I think I moved too many times. I threw away a lot of things. Otherwise, I would be there. Probably about 84, 85. I was still in 84, Canada. Yeah, in Wisconsin. Okay. So, but let me now go back to mention again about this, whether these can be the alias. The full aliasing of two factorial effect is mathematically not the same as the lack of identifiability in parameter estimation. Think about it. If you teach mathematical statistics, you say this parameter and the parameter are not identifiable. They are not identifiable. But in factorial design, a bit different. Why? Look at the last hint. If anything, this and the next bullet is my key idea that I had around 85. I think that was the major moment. But it took so many years for this to be fully, blossom. So let's view AB as part of 3D space. Manufacture AB, like father, mother, and AB. I'm in Arizona, a bit conservative, so I say one father, one mother. Okay. I go to California with two mothers. Okay. And I have CD and CD. But when I join the two subspaces, it becomes 5 dimensions because AB and CD are identical. Right? Well, the key point is to reparameterize. That's the key thing. Okay, so this is how we do that. We, instead of using the A, B, and A by B, we use the parent effect A and the two conditional main effect. And similar, I have this one, C, and this. Now, remember, these 3 effects are orthogonal, but they are not of the same length because the 2 CMEs are half length of the full effect. So actually, David Wood, when he read the paper, I believe he must be a referee of the JQT. He said this should be called half interaction. So there was one little sentence in the paper because I think it was nice, and I gave credit to him. Half interaction. Well, but now the key point is that when you join the two subspaces, it's still 5D. But now some of the effects are not orthogonal. For example, I'll show you on the next slide that like these and some of these are not orthogonal. But not being orthogonal is the blessing. Why? It's a saving grace. Because that means some of the conditional main effect can now be estimated. If they are all orthogonal, then 2 of them must be aliased. But they're partially orthogonal, then that was actually, I had the piece, I wrote that on the back of computer printout in 1980 something. I couldn't find it. I think I found something, but it's not so nice. I think I still found it in my office, maybe. So I didn't make a photocopy of that here. So this was actually the most important moment. Okay. Then you can do variable selection. Okay, so now let's look at here. So we now list all of them, and remember there are a lot of redundancy among them. Okay, so in 1988, I moved to Waterloo as the general motor, answer chair in quality and productivity. In those days, quality engineering was like machine learning now. I'm not joking. Oh my God. In the statistical meeting, any robust design, Taguchi would be the biggest room, and then people will have to waiting. We are not. I'm sorry. Don't think we are AI. We're not AI. We are okay here. But we have so many people today. We're quite happy already. But those days, like AI, my God, there's a lot of people I was very happy. I think I hit the right moment at the time. Then my career just all the way downhill. Okay. Okay. So, but as I said, I have this idea about the alias and the alias interaction, more or less along this subspace idea I have. But remember, they were still very primitive. Okay. But the beauty is I have great access to General Motors Canada data. And none here. Some of my Canadian PhD students remember we would go to General Motors early in the morning. I was very young at the time, not now. Now I'm quite worn out. So we would go there, draw early in the morning, go there before the factory, the line started, the engineer met with us and my student, and we stay and collect data. Quite a few PhD theses or General Motors data. Okay, so here's one data set. Actually, quite a few, but this is a data set I use my first analysis. It's a called car marriage station simulation experiment. But remember, this was 1988. Okay, so there are 6 factors. And using a resolution 4 design, so that means some of the 2-factor interaction are not estimable. I will just highlight a few that we're going to show later. C is lane selection logic. First in, first out, or free flow. There are a lot of lanes. You go to General Motors, I think Jianxi and his students all are familiar with that. And the other automatic guided vehicle, it is in the 80s. I have not been to factory plant anymore for a long time. Remember, auto industry now is low tech and no money. Yeah. You all go to AI. And my last part is e-commerce. Remember why I do that? Yeah. So my student can make some money. Okay. F is the marriage-based cycle time in the marriage station. Because depending on how you can send more workers or less, so you can change that. And they run a simulation. This is very typical industrial engineering simulation or throughput. That was from the General Motors Symposium, page number 14. That's original, GM Canada. Okay, so this is where the lane logic. Okay, you see, you can go different choices. Okay. So that's the data. And the standard analysis, actually, this was my first term in Canada, and I was very eager to teach. But I want to take the best student, and some actually quite well known now. 2 of them are technometric editor from Canada. And so this is standard analysis. You have normal plot. So E is the highest, but E is a repair rate. I forgot to mention. It's a repair rate. Obviously, the repair rate is faster, then of course you have more throughput. But other things are more subtle. So, but remember, these are not very significant. And you have an interaction which is DE, alias to CF. Okay, so now I'll show the methodology later. But the first model is the one using standard analysis, 3-man effect and a traditional 2-factor interaction. Let me just focus on model 2. Model 2 keep E, replace C and DE. Remember, DE is alias with CF. So DE is the same as CF. Replace C and CF by C given F plus. And now you see the p-value. Much, much more significant. And even the A effect benefit from this. Okay, so clearly model 2 better than model 1. So that was my analysis at the time in 1988-4. And another thing is that in this case, C given F plus has more meaning. It says that the lane selection logic has a significant effect on the throughput for larger cycle time, but not for these are larger cycle time. Not for smaller cycle time. So it makes sense. Okay. So that was my eureka moment. I knew it. But I didn't further pursue the idea why. So episode number 1. Okay. Actually, I was thinking about it for a long time. Time was not right. First, some of the companion ideas I mentioned now after They were not available. They were probably not developed. But I think this is very much. I was not mature enough in pursuing some seemingly simple idea. I highlight the words. Most the young researchers are much better in doing very complicated things. Machine learning, lots of a lot of asymptotic theory. Actually, I shut my ear because those are standard asymptotic theory. But they can go to annals, get a lot of. But those things, I tell you, you read that, it's of course they're true. But the difficult one, usually, is things that seemingly simple but no one else recognizes. You go back and look at the major work, at least in statistics, all of them satisfy this. I mean, they meet this requirement or the criteria. I don't think I was mature enough, but there's a practical matter. If I even finish the work, and if I would try to submit a paper, my paper would be rejected. Why? Because they say you're a lunatic. The idea of the traditional aliasing cannot be the alias. I mean, it's funny, but it's really related to Fisher and Yates, or they'll kill you. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. So you see, the profession sometimes is not very good. You work on standard stuff, you get a lot of paper published. In statistics, one area called semi-parametric, you can very easily get a lot of paper in the annals. Okay, I name one. So when they apply, I told my colleague, semi-parametric annals is all similar, then don't count that. Okay, don't count number of papers. Statistician in some universities only count number of big four papers. Very bad. Okay. But I won't name which one. Okay, so my moment came. Fast forward to the February of 2011, I got a phone call that I'll be giving the year's Fisher lecture. So the same night I went home, I said, what new stuff do I have or should I give? Then this idea of CME just came to my mind or pop up. Remember, they have been shelved for 20 years. And in between, I was not doing anything on this at all. I was busy with many other things. I need to make a living, right, like you. I need to write paper, grant, send student, write good letter for my student, say all the great thing about my student. And every new one better than the previous one. Everybody play the game. When I reviewed those, I kept telling my colleagues, they are not experienced. Don't say that. I read carefully. There's another word. I need to decipher the letter. These are usually by big shots. And they usually can get by with these things. But read carefully. This word, that word. Okay. So, but more important is that I knew my paper would not be rejected. Would they reject a Fisher lecture paper? No, they don't. So I knew I could do anything I like. So, I did a little bit more work between February and August. But actually, I spent more time doing another section that unrelated. That is, I spent a lot of time digging into the history, like Yates' work. Took a lot of time. That I probably don't have time here. There I gave in my Akaiki Memorial Lecture in Japan. I gave the whole history of what happened. And then took a few years. This appeared in JASA in a section. And then Henry Su came as my student and worked out the details. So, and this actually appeared in JQD. We had two editors, at least maybe 3 or 4 editors, 2 editors, JQD. This is a room with powerful people, my God. Yeah. And so, this paper, let me explain the idea. Now, CME, these two condition members are called twins. This terminology by Henry. Henry learned from me. I kept telling him, great idea, must have some name people can remember. I gave him history about George Box and his about, being my student, they all heard story about me telling them what to do. Not just technical, there are other things. So he picked up this. So the two CMEs are orthogonal to each other. So the 2D space, or the CME, is the same as their parent and the interaction. These two columns, the last two columns, are the same space. But you can only choose one of the two CME. But if you choose the other one, then you go back to traditional two-factor interaction. Okay, so first rule is this. Due to this algebra, when you sum the manifest and interaction, actually take the average, I forgot. Then it's CME given B plus. Okay, so why is this important? If you have two effects you observe in standard analysis, one main effect, one interaction involving the main effect. If they have the same sign, then replace these two by one. So, and this one has a bigger magnitude, and remember, you replace two terms by one term, so it's a better model, smaller model. If you have opposite sign, then you would replace these two by the CME given B+. There's with three rules in the paper. I only mentioned two. Okay, so another grouping called siblings and family. So these two are siblings because they share the same parent A. Siblings are not orthogonal. You can see that. You just do the calculation. Now, these co-families, the CMEs having the same interaction effect like these first four. Their interaction is AB, whether it's A given B or B given A. Now, the last four, they are CD or DC. But remember, AB, A with CD, right? So that's called family. Well, but the thing is, the families, non-twin CME and the family are not orthogonal. Okay. So in our model selection for this very simple problem, we must limit the effect to be orthogonal. Otherwise, if you choose non-orthogonal, there will be too many of them, be a very large model search and many incompatible models. So we do that. You see, statistical mathematics, we need to put restriction. And those are based on our ideas, a priori. It's different from mathematics, different from probability. But I think that's why statistics is very exciting and interesting. You need to inject some subject element. Okay, so we only would select one from a family and between siblings. They call second rule. This is the second rule. One among the siblings, from the family can be selected. Okay, so CME analysis. Step one is a standard one, Hanover plot or ANOVA. Now we use rule one, the first rule, to find, if we can, a main effect and a two-factor interaction, even fully alien is okay. Substitute them by an appropriate CME. By doing that, the fully aliasing we got rid of. Okay, so simple. And we use second and third rule that I don't have time for third rule, to guide the search. So now here's another example. This is really simple. You'll be surprised. It's 8 runs only. 4 factors. And so the standard analysis, and we would have this model of 5 terms, these 5, all the others small. Okay. But look at these 2. And they have the same sign. So replace them according to the first rule by A given D+. So now, instead of 5 terms, become 4 terms. One more. These 2, you see, remember, AC is A with DB. That means we can replace D and this I call DB, but they have opposite sign. Oh, sorry. Then we replace by D given B minus. So now 3 terms. To summarize, you can see that that's a traditional one. And let's just look at, for the save time, this one. See, the conditional main effects are much, much more significant than here. And even the factor C had nothing to do with our replacement also benefit. Okay. So the third model is the best in terms of model parsimony and effect significance. R-square is not important. But furthermore, these conditional main effects have more engineering meanings. Actually, these 2 interactions not only cannot be de-aliased, but they have very difficult interpretation. Okay, so now I'm going into acceleration right away. Actually, I knew about that. I knew when I do work, I will keep in mind the next step. But some work, you need someone super smart, not an ordinary student. So then came Simon Mack. But before that, so now we're moving from design experiment data, which is very limited, I have to say, into observational data. Remember, we now live in the age of data. Most of the students here will not be professor. And I hope you go to Silicon Valley, make $300,000 just calling yourself machine learning. You are. And you are analytic. Okay. So most data are observational data. And as I said, like in genetics, genes are either conditionally active or what gene can activate or inhibit other genes. But I want to use this quote. Of course, Simon Mack found this quote. It's in genetics. You look at how the consequence of how one mutation behaves in the present or second mutation. They form the basis of genetic interaction. I should highlight the word genetic interaction. So remember I said the word the English medium interaction. This genetic interaction is interpreted by a geneticist as a conditional main effect. There is a conditional main effect. Okay. In genetic, in many. Okay. So now this CME net, that's paper in JASA should be this coming issue right now. Okay. So instead of selecting main effect and two-factor interaction, we would select main effect and CMEs. But the CME here would be as basis function for variable selection. You think more broad. Remember, not design experiment, not orthogonality, very general bi-level factors. Input variable are bi-level of any kind, even nearly correlated. Okay, so now the objective very different. In the design problem, we try to disentangle the Fourier alias effect. But remember, that was my origin, right? Remember, I grew up in the tradition of Fisher, Yates, and Finney, and so forth. So my dream was to do something better than it, which I did. I was very happy, but don't just stop there. You now need to face the new crowd of big data science people, and variable selection, obviously one. So in observational data, the goal is to CME, a new basis function for variable selection, to find model with interaction, and this model more parsimonious and interpretable. Okay, so now we have this is a new concept. So the siblings are the same, but we have cousins. Cousins reverse role, that is, that the condition effect A, the same, but the parent can be different. So that's why kind of abusing the English language is cousin, right? You have two different parents that are related. Okay, so it's called cousins. We need it for variable selection. All the technical details Simon Mack did. I'm very happy. I'm a lazy person. If I'm a good student, I just stay home, drink tea, I go to office, publish a paper, sign my name, and that's it. Very simple. And come here to give a talk. Okay. So for time being, I don't have time. So the main thing we need to have a criterion is like Lasso. You need to have a criterion. You minimize criterion to try the variable selection. And this is the usual least square term. But now we have two penalty functions. One is for sibling penalty, one for cousin penalty. You need both. And I explain why. But let's look at this penalty. It's a bi-level penalty. So why is that? The outer one be summation over all the parents. J is parent J. The inner summation is all the siblings with the same parent J. Okay? So the inner penalty will select some of the CMEs given the one parent. And then the outer penalty will select some CMEs. Also remember that we have this coefficient that we can choose to choose smaller or bigger model set like so. And that's a sibling. And Well, a bit of this one actually, the outer one, we choose this penalty function, and I think we should give this person a lot of credit. Breslin is a biostat professor at Iowa. He actually did work on this bi-level selection. But of course, our main difference is we use conditional manufacturing, different from everyone else. But then the consequence, it involves more than the basis function. Remember, I need to define new concept of cousin, and there'll be more new concept on the next 2 slides. Okay, so now we have 2 concepts. These are new. One called CME coupling. If a CME is chosen in a model, then according to our selection criterion, the panel function we choose that drive this selection, more likely that the siblings will be chosen, or the cousins. So that's called the CME coupling. CME reduction. If there are quite a few siblings in the model, chosen in the model like this one in the red box, then the parent in fact A, more likely, and this will be chosen. And often this will drop later because this is so significant. So it's a reduction because you start with more siblings and you replace them by the parent. This came from that variable selection. But remember, the concept came from the Su Wu paper in design experiment. I mean, indirectly. What I'm trying to do in this talk is not detail, but to link the idea from A to B to C over the last, 1988. 30 years. Okay. So, these 2 are the extension of 2 fundamental. Okay, in Wu Hamada, in factorial experiment, we mentioned effect hierarchy, effect sparsity, and effect heredity. Okay, the terminology are ours, but only one concept was defined by us. The other are due to the old masters. Okay, so let's look at effect heredity. An interaction is chosen in the model only if one of the component, the parent component, is active. So this is very much related. I wouldn't say CME coupling. This is the heredity principle. Because it involves the coupling involved if you have the one being chosen, then the other the sibling will be chosen. Okay. Now, if a hierarchy, there actually was among the 3 principles, the most obvious and the one that have been actually even mentioned in textbook, not in the same word. I knew it. Just in words, you read David Kempthorne book but of course Yates actually wrote it down. That's one section of my official lecture paper. If you like history, I identify exactly which page, which line Yates did that, although without words. In Yates' data analysis for ecology experiment used all the 3 principles. I was most surprised is the heredity principle. I didn't expect anyone, but the great Yates had the heredity principle, not without the name. Okay. That's in the official lecture paper. Okay. So hierarchy is a low order interaction more likely to be active than higher order. Think about the CME reduction, right? If you choose a whole bunch of siblings, you can replace them by the parent. Parents higher order. Okay. So it's kind of nice to connect it to the design principles. And then we do, how much time you have?
12 minutes.
Okay, enough. So I still do a little bit technical instead of no technical, just storytelling. You think I'm just here bullshit. And so we have this optimization, and you know that now that mostly people do the coordinate descent. There are a lot of threshold function, all detail in the JASA paper. Again, like other people, Jerry Freeman, Tipshirani, and other many people. So this section, of course, is using the standard computational technique for like warm starts, active sets, and strong rule. So these are things I would say optimization people, computer science people make contribution towards statistics. So we've done that. Okay, but this is more interesting. So now let's apply the CME net to a very well-known data set called flywing shape. So if you go to the machine learning or variable selection later on bi-level selection, many people use the data set. 700 observation. Now, because they are 48 SNPs, the factor, remember these are input factor, right? Present or not present. So if you choose the manifest plus all the CME, but every pair of 4 CMEs, you take any pair of 4 CMEs, total is about 4,560 selection. So CME can quantify the activation behavior of the gene-by-gene interactions. And actually, the paper compared with 3 methods, but the really important one is the one by Bien and Rob Tibshirani. Bien must be student of Rob Tibshirani. Very major paper, very idea, called HiNet. So I think that's the state-of-the-art method before our method for selecting. The main difference is in there they choose like typical variable selection. Main effect will be x1, x2, x3. The interaction with x1 times x2, x1 times x3, and so forth. Okay, but they do use effect hierarchy in theirs. But actually, they call it. I don't think they ever read the Uhamada book. You know, they did big shot. Don't read other people's books. They call it hierarchy. Actually, it's not. They call it hierarchy. You read that. And in machine learning, call it hierarchy. Actually, it should be heredity. And also, heredity was coined by us long before machine learning ever even was born. There was our 1990-something paper in Journal of Quality Technology. So quality people can predate computer science people. Don't think they're the smart one. We can be smart too. Yeah. You read that the Hamada Wu paper had this idea long before machine learning people. Okay. So anyway, but this is a great idea. And these are great people. Okay, so the CME give lower out of sample, you do a cross validation, mean square prediction error. So that's a CME net, that's a high net. And there are other that are much worse. The other two, Lasso, and one more I don't remember now. So they're in the paper. So clearly they suggest if this mean square is so small, there's some underlying gene structure, the conditional structure, because the main difference between us and theirs is our basis function are CME, and their basis function are the standard x1, x2, the interaction. Okay, so now let's look at here. Let's look at this part first. So the HiNet chose gene 14. But CMEnet goes much further. It identifies these 4 conditional manifest, namely the gene 14 is conditionally active under gene 27, if gene 27 is absent because it's a minus, and or gene 38 when it's present. More than that, look at these two. The gene 14 activates 23 and inhibits 17, right? Okay. Now let's move to this part. This part, the HiNet chose a manifest and the traditional interaction, but we replace these two by the conditional manifest. Remember this algebraic rule, right? And now look at this is a lot more significant, much more significant than these two. And also this is a lot more meaning because what it says is gene 45 is conditionally active on 10. The tradition will not do that. I'm going to abuse the rule and spend 5 more minutes. Because I promise you, these 5 minutes is worth your time a lot more than anything else because you can make money out of this. Okay. Why? It's e-commerce. What else? Right? So, nowadays they make money, the traditional internet company, but even standard one like Walmart doing very well, but Walmart somehow was able to handle the onslaught of Amazon. Even my hometown company, Home Depot, is doing quite well. 2 years ago, their online sale 1 billion. And this with a student of mine busy to finishing. He had done Home Depot 3 summer intern and Facebook, etc. So he brought back whatever he learned. But idea is mine. Okay. How to design a website to best serve the interests of business? Okay, so the key thing called conversion. That is when the visitor visits the web page, that the job of interest, whatever interest to the owner of the web page, called conversion. Conversion rate will be the percentage of visitors who complete the job of interest. So if you design a web page, the most important thing is increase the conversion rate. Usual conversion rate is low. I mean, if I learn from David Zhao, my student, 5-6%, 4%. You can move 2%, you know how much money you can make, right? A few $100 million because every day. So this is really big money. So I know no one is leaving the room now. Okay. Now, but there's something called funnel. This is a series of pages the visitor go through until a possible conversion called funnel. So this is a funnel, a home page to a product page, then you go to the checkout cart. So I use a very simple funnel of 3 stations. So let's now treat it as a 2-level factorial. The difference between my work and some ongoing work, I won't tell you now because this is still top secret, is I can tell this part. A lot of people are doing online, including Amazon, whatever, but I bet in some regard my lab is better than they, even though they're $1 billion, I have only $2. The reason I give the secret, and it's okay, I bring in factorial structure. They only do A/B testing and do multi-unbanding, period. Okay. But I won't say more. Okay. Because these are things I'm doing not here, but in my lab. So A will be, say, the bar size, the search bar size, so only 2. B is a product page. On the product page, the big font, the smaller font. And then the checkout button, you can use red color or orange color. It's very simplified. So in Su and Wu, a different paper, same year, Henry Su, this is a totally different paper. This paper on funnel testing. We propose funnel testing, but mostly bringing the factorial structure and very simple variable selection. However, at the moment, we only use the traditional interaction. Henry was about to graduate. I cannot keep him. He gave a -3 minutes. So the interaction of that. However, it makes more sense to use CME. Think about this. C given B plus, meaning that the effect of the button color after the customer saw a bigger font. So you think about it. If you try to model the conversion funnel, it's a conditional main event that makes more sense. Well, actually, it's very true. A lot of things when you have tree structure, it's conditional. So I think CME will be all over in many, many places. I am willing to predict. Okay, so near the last one is the traditional one by Su and David Zhao, a student trying to finish. And so that would be the model we fit. That's in the previous paper. Using CMEs, we only had 2 terms instead of 4 terms. And you look at the CME funnel testing, simpler model, p-value much more significant, and so forth. Okay, so to conclude, CME is a natural measure of association between 2 factors. It often has more meaningful interpretation. For example, in a genetic study, its first success was in de-aliasing alias interaction without the need of having more runs. But the extension to bilevel factor is a lot more powerful, and it's a very general variable selection technique. And in my personal opinion, I think this will be a standard method for obvious reason, because you should use CME as the basis function. Then this should find a lot more applications. And the moment I'm focusing on online optimization, because it's so hot. Okay. And if other people can do, and since I can do it, why not? Okay. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff, for the great talk. Yes.
So in conventional approach with just the manufacturing and second order interactions and third, people often ignore third order interactions. because they're usually not present and they're hard to interpret. Do you find, I don't know if you've run it on enough data sets yet to have a feeling for whether or not with the conditional main effects, do you more often?
Yes, I think it's possible that there is one possible direction, that is a high order conditional main effect. Remember, there is much easier than third order x1 times x2 times x3. It makes no sense. You may have A given B plus and C plus. Now there are. In the Wu Hamada book, there's one data set has a third order interaction. Actually, it's conditional. So I'm revising the book, third edition. I'll interpret that. In the layer growth experiment, when you move to the latest chapter on robust design, in the robust design analysis, there was a third order interaction. Yeah, it makes sense there. But I didn't, it's a textbook. I cannot say too much. Yeah, but
It seems like on web layout problems, maybe you often have these higher order interactions present, conditional interactions.
yes, I would say maybe my lab cannot do everything. Someone else do it, please. Yeah. Yeah. So, no, I would say CME has spawned a lot of possible extension. That I'm very confident. Yeah.
You may have already thought about this. I want to see your insight on the design. You talk about design principle already, right? How about design criteria? Have you thought about the implication of this work?
Yeah, there was a paper, but not successful. I have a paper with Rahul Mukherjee, but visited from Taiwan in Sinica. But yes, you can do some extension of minimum aberration design for CME, but you see, if I don't propose any of these to my student, that means something, right? But there's something so nice, first thing I'll tell my student to do, right? That formulation too complicated. You know, a good thing should not be simple to state. That you look at it, you know. If you look at it, you frown upon, then don't do it. So I don't know. I can only say I don't have the capability to do that at the moment. But true, if I have model selection using CMEs, there can be some design criteria. I think that one, if you had a very clever mind, but among interested in that, he may be the one too. So, yeah, that's another possibility. But that's not on my radar screen. I want to do e-commerce. Yeah, I want to do multi-unbanded because I can beat them. So, to me, that's more important.
Thank you very much for the very educational talk. So, in the observational study, how do we understand or how do we interpret the variable selection when we have this significant condition main effect? So, just as an example, like the ensemble modeling, like the tree model, when we say the variable selection significance, we still define a subregion. But for the conditional main effect, that subspace, subspace sounds to be very limited because the condition factor is only at the high level or low level. So how do we interpret this variable selection?
Okay, I don't want to give the impression this can be so powerful. The work I've done so are limited by level, 2 levels. You may be able to extend to 3 levels, but you continue and don't try this. Continue, there are a lot of work. Another point is, but in some situation, the standard integration make more sense, and do that. This is just another optional tool. I'm not saying they replace this. May I say a viable option? Yeah, but that's all I can say.
Time for one last question. Yes.
Maybe a follow-up question is, in this case, are we still interested to estimate the conditional main effect when the conditional factor does not equal the high or low level?
Then we should not. Actually, you can do that. We can entertain both conditional main effect and some standard ones in the same variable selection. Furthermore, we can actually handle both bilevel factor and continuous factors. We make a remark in the JASA paper. It's deeper than that. I just text to Simon Mack the other day. I realized that yesterday in Tucson. I text to him. This guy already working on that. He told me that but what I'm saying is that in reality, you have some continuous factor. You can do the standard variable selection and some discrete factors. And there are also things about like high correlation. So there are a lot of very exciting things. Yes. Yeah. Your data set can do it. Yeah. Also, there's a very good R code already available. Yeah.
Okay, I think in the interest of time,
We'll give him a
stop
question.
here and continue.
Quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he's young season, but give him a break. Yeah.
So in your conditional framework, the problem is you will have some redundancy in the data. So in regression, when you are fitting a penalization framework, probably you will experience more of this collinearity problem. Is that correct?
Correct. So short, as I said, it's highly correlated. Maybe this is not good enough. It's not highly correlated because we do variable selection. Variable selection somehow will take care of that. But we should talk in offline. Yeah. Yeah, correct. That's what we are doing. Remember, Simon Mel started doing last night. I sent to him, text to him in the morning. He said he's working on that. So,
Let us thank Jeff again for the